Alrighty, guys, gals, non-binary pals. So before we get into this video, I just want to make it very clear, trigger warning at the beginning of this video. We're going to be talking about like feederism and some fetish stuff and like people intentionally gaining weight. And so if that's something that might trigger you, this might not be the video to watch. So I just want to make that very, very clear, okay? Because these videos are intense and they are, I mean, they aren't trying to hide what they are. So there's no gray area here. So I just want to make it very clear, okay? Okay, so with that being said, this video was sent to me by Rachel, who helps me with a lot of the videos behind the scenes. And it's from the channel Fantasy Feeder, okay? And as you can see, if you're watching the video, it says top 10 things to get as fat as you like. All right? So I will say one thing is, before we even get into it, it says here down here in the description of the video, it says age-restricted video requested by uploader. So I don't know if that means the person that uploaded the video said we are going to age-restrict this video, because we're going to talk about another video that I don't see that in the description. So I'm not sure why this one, for some reason, is age-restricted and the next one isn't. But, you know, that's just something. But again, like I said, just be ready. It's a wild ride, all right?
It can be surprisingly difficult to gain weight when you're actively trying to pack on the pounds. Maybe you're unsure of how to start, or maybe you've hit the dreaded gaining plateau and need some tips.
If you're not watching, I would recommend you watch, because on the screen it says, let's get fat together, okay?
Here at Fantasy Feeder, we've researched this topic and want to share our tips on the best way to gain weight quickly, healthily, and as cheaply as possible.
So it says gain weight quickly, healthily, and as cheaply as possible. All right?
Do remember to stay healthy and active on your weight gain journey and try to remain fat and fit as much as possible. If you experience any problems, please reassess your decision to gain weight and if it's worth the risk to continue. Obviously, the decision is always yours and no one else's to make. First
That's true. That is very true.
of all, we wanted to share some tips from our lovely members on Fantasy Feeder, so a big thank you to everyone who got in touch and gave us their top tips for getting fat. Gainerboy265 from Fantasy Feeder says, try to be as sedentary as possible. So before you sit down to relax, make sure you've got everything you need. Things like your phone, your charger, snacks, drinks, remote control, and anything else you can think of.
Okay. So I do appreciate that they say, hey, like, let's do this as healthy as possible. But literally the first thing they bring up is try to be as sedentary as possible. So before you sit down to relax, make sure you've got everything you need. Things like your phone, charger, snacks, drinks, remote control, and anything else you can think of. So it's like, you want to do this as healthy as possible, but also let's, like, okay, I don't know how, okay.
BBW Fatmaker from Fantasy Feeder says, set time aside to slob out and stuff yourself silly at least twice a week. Actively gaining weight takes a bit more planning and effort than you might think, so set aside an evening to yourself or with your partner so you can really enjoy the experience and binge. Chubby Piglet from Fantasy Feeder says, make sure you're mentally prepared. She actually practices and experiments with meditation and hypnosis to gain weight. Not only does this encourage your body to get fatter, but it will also prepare yourself mentally for the changes to come. People are likely to comment on your progress and not always positively, but don't get disheartened and take these comments as a sign of encouragement.
So this is just something I personally, I just can't relate to it all, right? Like, imagine, like, actively trying to gain weight. And again, it's not even actively trying to gain weight in a way of, like, gaining muscle, right? It's, like, actively trying to gain fat. Because, man, that would be so strange, because you're going to have people that are going to comment on your weight, right? Which, you know, that's not cool. But normally people are like, oh, don't do that. But someone that would be in this position, right, that would be watching this video, I feel like you would almost want people to comment on it because you're trying to do that, you know? So, okay, so strange. I'm sorry.
Some great words of wisdom there and some great tips for us all to follow and practice. So thanks ever so much, guys. And now, what you've all been waiting for, Fantasy Feeder's top 10 tips to get as fat as possible. Tip 1. Introduce shakes into your diet. Shakes these days are packed full of great nutrients for your body and usually come in around 350 calories per serving. So not only are they healthy to drink, they are an easy way to add on the pounds. Remember, it takes around 3,500 calories to gain about 1 pound in weight, so 2 shakes a day for a week could help you gain around 1.5 pounds.
It's funny because a lot of the tips that they bring up, it's like literally, it's like what I say, but just the opposite. So like for me, I'm like, I don't think shakes are the best option because a lot of times they have a lot of calories and like drinking your calories and all this stuff, but it's like living in opposite world. It's so strange.
Tip 2. Home baking and cooking is key. It tastes better than pre-packed microwave food. It's healthier and usually cheaper in the long run. However, if you are new to making food from scratch, getting stock cupboards may have an initial financial outlay. The reason it's great is because you can tailor your meal specifically to your own taste and calorie intake, adding as much or as little as you fancy. So things like extra cream, butter and cheese are really easy to add to almost any meal. 1 stick of butter is around 800 calories and 1 cup of heavy cream is also around the same at 800 calories. Cheese is super high in fat and calories, so try to add this gainer staple to your diet on a daily basis if you can.
So again, like literally just like everything they're saying, just think of it the opposite. So don't do those things and you'll be good to go.
Tip 3. Pimp out your food. Use sauces, dips, extra cheese and dressings. These small tasty extras can really make a difference. Other ways to pimp out your food include adding extra cheese, meat, veg toppings to things like store-bought foods such as pizza, fries and pasta dishes. It works with almost anything really. Tip 4.
Exactly, man. Got to avoid those sauces, or in their case, add more.
Try to have at least 2 courses for every meal, a main and a dessert, or a starter and a main. Or if you're a more advanced fatty, then why not all 3 courses? Having more than
A more advanced fatty. Okay.
1 course regularly will increase your stomach capacity and appetite, meaning you'll gradually get used to eating more as standard. Tip 5. It might be time to upgrade your tableware. Bigger dishes and bowls mean that you can fit more food on your plate, which will encourage you to eat more. It's a very simple and effective way to pack on the pounds.
This is actually, again, this is a good tip, but just the opposite way. A lot of us, like, we might have really big, like, bowls and stuff at home. So, like, getting stuff that's a little bit smaller so it looks like your food is bigger and it's taking up more room is actually a really good way to be like, oh, I'm tricking myself into thinking I'm eating more.
Tip 6. Leave snacks around the house, bowls of chips and sweets and chocolates. Many of us eat out of boredom, so having visual reminders of food being around will make us hungry and tempt you to snack more often. Don't forget, the bigger that you get, the more sedentary you'll become, so having snacks easily accessible around the house is a good habit to get into. Tip 7. Eating out and takeaways. This one, unfortunately, isn't always the cheapest option, so we wouldn't recommend doing this regularly. Eating out and takeaways are a special treat, so make the most of your money by choosing special offers and deals. It's usually cheaper to get a family meal rather than individual items, so get the extra and enjoy. If you don't finish it, you can always save it for the next day.
I mean, it really is crazy how, like, a lot of times, like, a meal that you would have at home, if you went out to eat it, a lot of times just the way that it's cooked and the amount that they make, it literally is like, ends up being like 3 times the amount of calories as if you were to just make it at home. Even if it was a quote unquote maybe an unhealthy thing, even if you made it at home, it a lot of times will have just a lot less calories than when you're at a restaurant, like for the most part, all they care about is like we want to make sure that this tastes as good as possible. So they're going to do anything possible to make sure it tastes as good as possible. And they also want you to feel like you got good value, so they're going to make the serving gigantic, right?
Tip 8. Keep a food diary so you can keep track of what food you've eaten and how effective they've been at helping you gain weight. This will help you filter out the foods that work best for you so you can add them to your diet as often as possible to gain weight quickly.
Again, it's like opposite world. It's like literally the same things that you say to someone that would be losing weight, but you are just telling them to do the exact opposite thing. So keep a food diary so you make sure you're eating enough versus to make sure you're not eating too much.
Tip 9. Build yourself a weight gain toolkit. Tracking your progress is important, and it's always great to be able to see growth, as this will only encourage you to get fatter. We would recommend purchasing bathroom scales, calipers, and a measuring tape, and record your results on a weekly basis if possible.
I mean, I don't have to say it again. Exactly. Literally, like, oh my gosh.
And finally, tip 10. Get support. Whether that's online or in real life, it's up to you. But it is important to share your progress and to celebrate your goals and achievements. There's thousands of members on Fantasy Feeder waiting to join you and encourage you along your weight gain journey.
Okay, so that's the first video. But again, like I said, there's 2 videos. So I want to watch this other one with you as well. So this one, again, it's about the same amount of time. But the title of this video is Living the Gainer Life, What to Expect as You Get Fatter. And then I'm going to go into my opinions on this stuff at the end, I promise. But we just want to watch this.
When you make the decision to gain weight and get fat.
Whoops, I had it on 2 times speed because she talks very slow, but we'll put it on normal.
You may think about how your body will change, how it will look, and how it will feel. There's a lot of things to consider, and not just the physical side of gaining and body aesthetics. So in this video, we're going to talk about what to expect as you pile on the pounds. So sit back and relax, grab a piece of cake, and enjoy as we go through the 4 main points of friendships and relationships, mental, sexual, and physical aspects of gaining weight.
Wait, look at what that says. Hey, fatty, right back at you, Lardo. What on earth?
Relationships, mental, sexual, and physical aspects of gaining weight.
Oh yeah, sexual. It gets weird. It gets weird.
As you get bigger, you may find that you get a lot more attention. Some of this may be negative, but in the fat scene, you'll usually get a lot of compliments, followers, and people interested in your progress. A lot of feeders like to start from scratch with a slim feedee or gainer, but many are interested in people who are already chubby or fat already, as it shows you're interested in eating and already happy to be a bigger person. So you're more likely to get into a feederism relationship if you are already a bit fat, so putting on some initial pounds.
So someone in the chat said, why are the guys smaller? So a lot of what they're talking about, and a lot of what this channel, basically what this channel is, it's about feederism. So usually someone in the relationship will be smaller, and I think they're called the feeder, and then someone in the relationship will be bigger or trying to get bigger, and then they are the feedee, and they're the person that's eating and gaining the weight. So a lot of times there will be some people that are lower in weight, that like usually it's someone that's lower in weight that wants to be with a bigger person and they want to see them get bigger. And again, like a lot of fetishes and a lot of sexual stuff, there's usually a lot of stuff that goes back to their childhood as to why they might be interested in this. But yeah,
will help if you wish to find a feeder. Be prepared for comments about your size. You can't hide your fatness or expanding belly, bum, arms, or double chin. People will notice and are bound to ask about your weight gain. So have a think about if you're ready for this, as you won't be able to keep it a secret for long. You may not want to divulge your interest in feederism with friends or family, which may mean you need to think about what
you may not want to. I'm assuming most people probably aren't going to be like, oh, you're gaining weight. What's going on? Well, I have this fetish where I gain weight, and that's what my partner likes. Like, I'm assuming most people aren't gonna want to divulge that information.
You want to say to people when they question why you're suddenly 2 sizes larger. Here at Fantasy Feeder, we think it's important to be honest and happy, and the best way to do that is to be upfront. You don't need to go into depth about feederism, but you can say that you just prefer to be chubby, or that you're happier with a few more pounds on your frame. If you are concerned about people being judgmental, over recent years we found that people have become a lot more fat friendly, with body positivity movements becoming popular and curvier men and women being celebrated for their size and portrayed more in the media. If there ever was a time to get fat and love life, it is now.
dude, it's just...
As always, there will be changes to how you view and perceive yourself, but as you want to get better, this should all be positive on your part. You will feel happier in yourself as you hit and surpass goals. You'll feel less stressed about having to fit in and conform to societal norms once you decide to let yourself go. Eating more and enjoying your new hedonistic lifestyle will be freeing and pleasurable. You know.
Hey, I mean, again, like a lot of the stuff I disagree with, but I mean, there is something to be said about being able to no longer only focus on what society deems as acceptable or unacceptable, or like strictly caring about what they have to say and what they have to think about you. Again, this is pretty extreme, but I can see that being a good feeling for some people, right? Especially if you are someone that your whole life you have tried to be a certain size and you feel like you can never do that for whatever reason, and then finding this lifestyle and then thinking to yourself, oh, I can gain weight and then I will be accepted by this group of people. Again, do I say I agree with it? Absolutely not. I'm just saying I can understand why someone would feel pulled into this direction.
You no longer need to go to the gym every day and work out, and you'll have a lot more time to dedicate towards things that make you happy, such as eating and relaxing and being sedentary. There are studies that show overweight people are generally happier in life and with themselves than thinner and slimmer people.
That's just not true. Okay. Also, we know who this is, and she is not a very nice or happy person, but that's fine.
So what are you waiting for? Get fat and happy. It must be all the chocolate that we get to eat. Well, it is better than sex, so they say.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Like many of us in the feederism community, you are bound to get sexual pleasure from your larger body, full bellies, and eating in general. Not only are you more likely to find a sexual partner into feederism by being larger, but you will find that you'll be able to explore whole new experiences that may not have been previously an option for you with regular non-feederism partners. It's really hard to share your fantasies with someone who isn't into this fetish or fatness in general due to the stigma associated with feederism. But when you get bigger, you can actually experiment with feeding and sex exclusively. Many of us take food into the bedroom, wear tight restricting clothes that show off our rolls and fat bits. You can venture into fat humiliation or even try squashing your partner so they can feel how heavy you are. Knowing that you're gorgeous, voluptuous, fatty, and your partner loves every inch and roll of you is thrilling. You can...
Again, the reason I'm not saying much about this part is because I'm not trying to kink shame or anything. So I'm just going to let this part go.
Both enjoy your newfound softness, belly play, and food play together. Many people become exhibitionists when they get involved in feederism relationships too. So enjoy being confident and fat, show off your softness, curves, and jiggle those rolls. We love it, and we know you love it too. Last but not least, of course, the physical aspect of getting fatter is the most noticeable change, and the most enjoyable as the transformation takes place. This doesn't just affect your body, but also the environment around you. When people gain weight, they may not get fat all over. The proportions of your body and your fat will be different from one fat person to the next, which is part of the fun. For some, they get soft, low-hanging bellies, and others, hard tummies that stick out. Some people develop gorgeous belly rolls, and others stay beautifully round and smooth. There's stretch marks to look forward to, which are a glorious sign of your progress.
Dude, that's so weird to hear. That is so weird to hear that stretch marks are a glorious sign of your progress, because, oh my gosh, I know how many people... Dude, I mean, I understand, like, I can understand why so many people are like, this is like a struggle for them to watch, because, man, it's hard to listen to.
You may develop a double chin. Your breasts and moobs may get larger, shapelier, and more jiggly. Your tummy becomes heavy, thighs get thicker and may start to rub. You develop pudgy fingers and dimples on your hand. You get chubby toes and feet. A bigger bum or a bum shelf and extra rolls in places you wouldn't expect, like your upper arms and the top of your thighs. And these are just some of the physical changes you can look forward to in your expanding fat body. As you get bigger, you will need to get new clothes and maybe even furniture. We've all dreamt of popping buttons and getting stuck in doorways, but you need to be prepared for this in reality. When buying clothes, buy a size bigger or buy stretchy clothes made from jersey material so they last longer until you reach your ultimate goal weight. Once you get to a certain size, you may need a seatbelt extender for your car, larger and wider chairs or beds, extra wide bathtubs and showers, or specialised weighing equipment that can handle your weight and heaviness, as some only go up to a certain weight. All of the above costs money, and so does all the extra food that you'll be buying and eating. So try to bear this in mind, as it can become costly, but this can be supplemented if you find a feeder who is happy to contribute financially. You don't just get fat overnight, you have to put in some serious work, but we promise it's definitely worth it once you reach your goal and become your fantastically fat self.
All right, so those are the two videos. So my thoughts. Obviously, I don't condone anything like this. I think that, there are so many genuine problems that can come from, one, just being overweight in general, but then especially like forcing yourself to become overweight, especially if your body that's not something your body wants to do, and just like constantly feeding your body, right? We all know the diseases and the things that can go wrong there. Do I think this should be allowed on YouTube? Like, these videos should be allowed on YouTube? This is a hard question for me to answer, because I know a lot of people are like, the first thought is like, no, absolutely not, it shouldn't be allowed on YouTube. But I think that as humans we're able to make the decisions that we make. I think that if you're an adult, you should be able to do what you want. But I think at the same time, it should be very clear what the consequences for those actions are. And I don't think that this video, and of course they don't, right? They don't do a good job of explaining what it's really like to live that type of life. And like the genuine struggles that you go through when you are that size, and like the actual implications of being that size and what it can do to you. But this is not, I know a lot of people in the chat and stuff were commenting like, oh my God, I can't believe this is real. Like, this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a very long time. This is a community. Like, this is a real thing that's going on. It's not satire. Like, this is a real thing. This is not a secret thing that no one knows about. There's quite a bit of people that know about this this community and about what is going on here. Like, this is something that goes on. So I just wanted to share that because it's so, it feels so bizarre watching that, being someone that has lived through the opposite of that. And I understand, and like to a certain extent, I feel almost frustrated and upset with someone making the choice to do that to themselves on purpose. But at the same time, like for me, everyone does have their own decisions, and they can make their own decisions, and they live their own life. But I really would advise strongly against doing something like this, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's a world. It is a world.